Well, we were only kind of half expecting the news on London going into Tier 3. And it's been an interesting story. I was talking to a few people on social media about this earlier, because I mentioned London, and straight away lots of people said, well, why focus on London? Well, we focused on Liverpool previously. We focused on Manchester. But, of course, London is the capital city, whether you like it or not. So there are specifics about being a capital city. Firstly, the amount of people there. In one city, 8 million people dwell. That's a third bigger than the entire country of Scotland. You've got about 1.5 million people travel to the capital on a daily basis, on a good day. They will come from all over the country, as far as you can imagine, right the way in. The nearest in terms of commuters, I think, is Manchester, which is about 150,000 people on a day-to-day basis. And, of course, whether we like it or not, the epicentre of our economy. But more than that, of course, I mean, we're only hearing about London. I mean, it could affect other areas that are moving into Tier 3. Tier 3, of course, means things are still open, but you can't really do very much. So restaurants and pubs and all the rest of it, forget it, mooching around, meeting, forget all of that. Tier 3 is essentially another lockdown. But actually, we didn't realise we were going to talk about this. We didn't know this announcement was coming, and Matt Hancock will speak. It's about 3:20, Ricky. I think Matt Hancock's in the House of Commons making that announcement. We'll watch to whether it affects other areas. And then I was looking across at Germany as well and what's happening there. They've kind of cancelled Christmas. The number of deaths and infections are rising. Record levels in Germany. Non-essential shops will close across the country from Wednesday, as will schools, with kids cared for at home wherever possible. Angela Merkel blamed Christmas shopping for a considerable rise in social contacts. So they've got about 20,000 more infections, according to the latest figures, 321 deaths. The new lockdown will run from December the 12th to December the 16th to January the 10th. Announcing this, she announced it with the 16 states that make up Germany, and said there was an urgent need to take action. So they're going to have a maximum of 5 people from no more than 2 households are allowed to gather at home, but this will be relaxed from the 24th to the 26th of December, when one household will be able to invite a maximum of 4 close family members from other households. Nonetheless, it's looking pretty grim. And you add all of this together, and I'll come to some other little elements that are making me feel a bit wobbly at the moment. Shouldn't make us feel wobbly, but wobbly knowing how our government tend to react to this now, and governments across the world as well. So we have a situation where you're sort of looking at thinking, is a third lockdown now inevitable? 0344 499 1000. I'm looking at this story of Germany. I'm looking at London going into Tier 3. I'm looking at all I already live in a Tier 3, so for me it'll make little or no difference. I hop into the capital to do my day job and then hop out again. I'll merely be going from Tier 3 back to Tier 3. And of course there are other places around Manchester, and the list could go on, of places that are in Tier 3. Some still got the heady status of Tier 1, of course. But actually what I'm hearing, and this is what gave me the wobbles, I'm just hearing about more and more people who have coronavirus. Now, you don't need any lectures from me to tell having coronavirus isn't the thing. Having it to the point you're wired up to a ventilator and might die is that they're two almost completely different stories. Most people who seem to have got it hardly knew they had it. Very mild symptoms and the like, wasn't crippling, didn't consign them to bed or anything like that, but I'm just hearing more of it. And just in my own circle, my little boy, now it's interesting because my little boy was meant to go to his childminders last Thursday and didn't go because he wasn't very well. And because he wasn't very well, he couldn't go to the childminders, and therefore I had to have the day off work, if you remember, in order to look after him. Turns out that a new kid that went that day has tested positive for coronavirus. So the childminder has had to close down the business this side of Christmas. So she's got to self-isolate, and anyone that was there that day would have to self-isolate. And so as a result, her business has gone by the wayside. And there was a fella coming round to my house today, separate story, guy called Jamie. Hello, Jamie, if you're listening, to do some carpet cleaning. He does steam cleaning. And when you've got 2 kids, believe me, that sucker needs a steam every now and again. And he texted me yesterday, said, I might not be able to make it because my daughter is in, a situation where she's self-isolating because somebody in the school has got the issue. So he might have to, if that turned out that there was anything there, he might then have to cancel. Imagine doing that for a living, where before Christmas everybody wants their stuff done, carpets and windows and whatever else. Well, you've got to cancel all of your customers at arguably your busiest time. So just within 24 hours, 2 different people I know are potentially closing down their business before Christmas. You begin to see how devastating this is on the other side of things. And then on top of that, just lots of stories of kids. There was my son's school, the reception year, have all been told to stay away because some kid either got it or came in contact with somebody or something like that. The other school round the corner, same thing, years 2, 4 and 6 or something like that. They've also been told to all stay at home. Now, I wasn't hearing those stories a couple of weeks back. I'm just hearing a lot of that. And we know Matt Hancock, when Matt, spots a drama, he's straight out the traps, isn't he? There's no hanging around when Matt sniffs trouble in the air. And Professor Lockdown, you can see him chomping at the bit to close more places. And I'm sure the Prime Minister would rather not do that, but there is a sense, just looking at the pattern of our political masters down there and what they've been doing over the last few months. So London into Tier 3, that joins lots of other places already in Tier 3. There's quite a lot of us already in that tier. North, south, east and west, not so much southwest, interestingly, where they seem to have escaped everything. Tier 1 down there, having a right old putt. Go to Cornwall for Christmas. Oh, you're not allowed, are you? You can't. Is that right? You can't move between your tiers? Unless it's for work. You can't actually go, I'm nipping for a Beano down there in Penzance. That wouldn't be allowed. 0344 499 1000. What are you sensing from this? Because I can see an almighty national lockdown on the way. Because you know what? If they're interested in getting numbers down, I'm just talking about infections here, not deaths, hospitalizations. I know there's a correlation, but I'm just talking about people who've got tested positive for it. They're never going to do that when you're in a tier system. Right? It's as simple as that. In Germany, they've blamed already, Angela Merkel has blamed Christmas shopping. Over here, we blame partygoers and some protesters and things like that. So all the while, you're able to do some of those things where lots of people are mixing in close proximity. You're never, ever going to cure the problem of there being a rise in infections. In fact, some, of course, argue that if you want to get to a stage where more people have had it, then that's no bad thing. Epidemiologists are divided on the herd immunity thing. Largely, of course, they believe that the lockdown system works. So the only option you've got is a full lockdown. The only time we absolutely saw numbers get right down there, so we were not announcing daily deaths of any significance or hospitalizations, was when we had a full lockdown. So I'm expecting, come January, that we are going to see Boris Johnson standing up there at the podium of doom, shoulder to shoulder with the Chuckle Brothers, as they bring us more news from the den of wisdom that is the Department for Health, headed by Matt Hancock, who will probably start bawling his eyes out on morning television, saying, I'm sorry I got it wrong. But the reasoning might be slightly different. The reasoning might be, we need this lockdown until we have vaccinated the vulnerable, until we've vaccinated the elderly, until we've vaccinated people at the coalface like healthcare workers. And that 3-month period or whatever they decide would be enough to get that done. So I might be talking out the top of my head on this one, but the tier system does not work, right? Am I right on that? It does not work. If you are hell-bent on reducing numbers, and that's your aim, you don't want to see daily infections. I can't be the only person that watches slightly confused when they say, oh, it's terrible. Yeah, more. Well, Wales. What's his name over there? Drakeford. Kim Jong Drakeford, who decided you couldn't buy alcohol, for goodness sake. Yeah, we're going to stop the sale of alcohol. Who does he think he is? Not even from the offie. We're going to stop the alcohol sales because the amount of cases have gone up. Well, Yeah, it's a pandemic, mate. The cases will go up unless you completely lock things down. So if we follow their logic, and their logic seems to be that we don't want to see cases going up, well, what do you want then? Don't have a tier system, because you can't have both. If you have a tier system, particularly tiers 1 and 2, cases will go up as sure as night follows day, right? I'm not an epidemiologist, but I think I can work that one out. 0344 499 1000. So shine some light. A couple of things I want to throw out here. One, if I'm talking absolute garbage on this, believe me, I'm all ears. The last thing I want to see is our country closed down for another 3 months after Christmas. That would be a full year, by the way, that we've been shut. Think about that. A year we've been closed. 50% of my little boy's life has been spent in a lockdown. Man alive. It's horrendous. It is absolutely horrendous. But using their own logic, I can't think of where else this could go. And secondly, I mentioned the childminder, the carpet cleaner. Just tell me about your line of work. What kind of aggro does this play with your world? Because I know there are some people who are busy and there are some people who carry on working, and that's great if that can happen. Fabulous. But there's a whole contingent of people, childminders and, cleaning carpets and windows and the like. I mean, these are standard fare, right? Standard small businesses, people who want to earn an honest living. There are hundreds of thousands of people across the UK in those kind of businesses. So what's yours facing at the moment as they monkey around with the tier system, as they elevate to tier 3, the potential of another lockdown?